What is this marriage thing? Where'd it come from? Do we need it? Are we better off without it? Welcome to For One Another. That's what we'll talk about today. I was thinking recently that if I wanted to do away with something because it excused my behavior, if it's gone, then the easiest way to do that is to paint that thing as a bad thing that's always been bad, and we're better off without. We see that happening a good bit with marriage. You see a growing number of messengers in the world around us who will say things like, well, we don't really need marriage because it just hinders your life anyway. It's risky. We weren't meant to be monogamous. We're meant to be free. And in fact, maybe you don't even need marriage to raise children. You can raise children just as well and healthy by yourself. You don't need it at all. So there's really no reason to be married. The same messengers who say this tend to also propagate the same message about marriage's origins. And that message is that it had a bad origin, that it was made for some nefarious purpose. Usually something like it was made to control women, or it was made to control men, or it was made by the noble people to control the little people. So they would be too busy just being married and raising families to rise up and take power. So it paints marriage as this controlling tool that was put there for a bad reason. And so, by that view, well, it makes sense that eventually we would evolve to where we don't need it, because we don't think women should control men, or we don't think men should control women, and we don't believe in kings, so maybe we don't need marriage. You can see how the logic flows. On the other hand, if you believe that marriage had a good origin, like I do, then you would tend to believe that it is good for us. And the origin that I believe is that God created marriage. And He did that because even though the whole world was available for all kinds of creativity, the first man could name all the animals and tend for things and had a whole domain to have authority over, he still was missing something. And what he was missing is that ability to have a lifelong intimate relationships that was shared with another human being. And so God made marriage to fill that role. And so it ended up adding to the person's life. And it brought a lot of benefits, like the ability to be charitable. Turns out that people who are married tend to be more charitable with other people in other places. They tend to work with people better in working situations or in team situations because they've had to learn how to live with somebody and how to take someone else's opinion into account, how to not always make it about them. At least if they have a successful marriage, they have had to learn to do that, and they tend to get on better with other people as a result. Turns out also that despite what some say, every reputable study says that children are much better off having a mother and a father in a nurturing, stable home. That they tend to grow up with a much stronger self-concept. They tend to be able to relate to others more effectively. And they end up, you can track them into adulthood, they end up becoming much more profitable in all the ways that we value. Like they get good jobs, they contribute to society, they do things that are creative and positive. They tend more often to be able to do that, or at least the path is easier on them when they have a stable home. So that all says marriage is a good thing. So which is right? Well, I would just like to put a few thoughts forward for consideration. One is, we do seem to be drawn to marriage, don't we? Even many times, those who will initially argue and say, no, it's not necessary, we don't need it, they end up getting married. And not because of pressure, they end up choosing to get married. The other thing we can look at is, let's just play it out. Let's say marriage is a bad thing, and we'd be better off if it were going away. People would be more charitable. There would be less crime in the world. There would be more love, more compassion, things like that in the world. Children would grow up more stable if we didn't have marriage. Well, the question is, marriage is declining. Is that getting better? Are people becoming more charitable? Are children growing up healthier, more stable, with fewer emotional problems? That's a good question to consider, isn't it?